Hello, good morning. A very, very warm welcome to you, the viewer of KOKOLIRIKO live show. And I know you must be waiting, but we are back to also let you know of what continues to happen in the due course of the week. And as we get closer to the end of the week, and today is actually our last day into the discussions where we are going to be discussing lots of pertinent issues with you here and there. And also as the viewer, we shall be expecting your comments also and thoughts on what are some of the issues that we are going to be discussing here and the rest. Also that shall also be unfolding on the show as well. And that is where we want to take this opportunity now in a special way to welcome you on board from wherever you are watching us from this morning here as we start off your day with the KOKOLIRIKO live show, and where we are going to be letting you know of some of the stories that continue to make rounds in the headlines. And that is actually the reason as to why we are always here to let you know that. And as West Nile TV, our number one mandate, remember, remains that is to enlighten the region and to keep you updated, informed, and also really entertained. And that's where we have lots of enticing programs, also really from morning up to evening, all to keep you in the know of what continues to transpire in your areas in there. And that is how we as West Nile Television, we are to keep you also really there. As also we must let you know of what continues to happen in the region, because all this you will be finding it not anywhere but only on West Nile TV channel 477 on Star Times, and also already on 0073 on Zuko as well. For those of you who are watching us in the central part of Uganda in there, I want to say thank you so much, welcome aboard. And not forgetting those in Western Uganda, we also really want to as well say welcome aboard, because we have many people who watch us from Western Uganda in parts of Masindi, Buliza, Hoima, Chiradongo, and many other areas also really in Western Uganda in there. We say thank you so much. For those of you watching us in Fort Portal, we do not also take you for granted. We are also really very much appreciative of you, and then the entire northern Uganda. We are also very much proud of you, because that is the reason as to why we are here. It is also to make sure that you get to know of what continues to happen in and across the country in there. And remember, it being a Friday, the 9th of the month of August, that means we are already 9 days down into the month of August, which is really something which I also feel you must also really be knowing in there. And that is why we're here to also let you know that. And we are going to be continuing with you up to the hour of 9 o'clock. And after 9 o'clock, that is when the news bulletin in Liberty shall also be coming through. But remember, in here, we shall be having so many other programs already that will be coming through the due course of the day. And remember, today we shall also be having the Lubara Mabi, which is a cultural program also for the Lubara people in there. And later on, we shall also be having the Islamic hour for the Muslim community also in there, for them to also understand the faith. Because if at all you are not going to be giving time to understand what your religion is saying, then that is how it is going to be unfortunate. And then remember, society without God is actually one where we shall be seeing a lot of chaos and a lot of also really bad omens happening. But really, we do not pray for that, and we are saying we must make sure that we respect each and everything also God has given us, and also what God has bestowed us with. And that is a reason as to why we also bring the Islamic hour for the Muslim community to have that spiritual nourishment in there. And that's also where we shall be having that. And remember, for the Christians, on Sunday, the Sabiti show also comes very much lively in there, and where you also get to understand what is also really for you in the world of God in there, because you must also make sure that you listen to what God is telling you, and then maybe what God wants you to do in that. That's why we are going to be beginning our discussions with. But remember, before we begin our discussions officially, yesterday there was an accident that's already involving, that is a bus of belonging to Divine Cause, also already headed for Kampala for Moyo, and that is where we did see also it being involved in an accident. That is in Ayugi, but according to information we are receiving, no person also was reported dead in there. However, we registered so many people who got injuries, but we continue to also pray for those who got injuries in the accident to also get quick recovery in there, because what we also must pray for as we on these roads is that we must also be protected from accidents, because accidents are quite big and also usually drag us behind. And that's the reason as to why we must always pray for ourselves as we on these roads, because we never know when accidents will also be maybe falling up, maybe to us. And that's why we are saying, while we're on these roads, we must make sure that we pray to God. We must pray to God, because He is the one who oversees our safety on these roads. and he's the only one who can also really make sure that we reach safely to our final destinations in there. And that is how at the end of the day we are going to be also really getting sure that we reach safely in there, because usually we say safe journey, but we pray also really as we start off our journeys. That is how we also need to also really embark on as citizens, as travelers. We must make sure that we always pray to God before also really setting off with the journeys in there. And that is how at the end of the day we are going to be also really getting sure that we reach safely to our final destinations, and maybe finally to where we want to also really reach in there. And that is how at the end of the day it will be good for us to also always pray in there. That would also really be quite good for us to also really make sure that we also really make sure that we reach safely, and that is how we are going to be also really reaching safely in there. Now, if slain URA staff laid to rest is the story that we are seeing on the this morning. Remember, many people also really raised a lot of issues also in relation to the murder of this man here, who is said to be murdered, but who exactly killed this man? Cold blood. Because much as we are complaining about URA people in Koboko, yesterday I was in Koboko district and I was able to also realize that some people recently went and attacked a police office, which is really wrong, because these are suspected smugglers also from the district in there. But how do we make sure that we pay taxes without these ropes also really being pulled here and there? And that is something also which I feel at the end of the day must also really be dealt with. We must stop looking at URA as enemies, and that is how URA also really must make sure they come to down the grassroots, and also really make sure that people understand why they need to pay taxes. And that is how at the end of the day government must do whatever it takes to make sure that people feel the benefit of them paying taxes. Because if somebody is not also really realizing why they must pay taxes, then definitely paying the taxes also really will be quite difficult for them. And now, yesterday we did see former Uganda Revenue Authority staff member, the late John Bosco Ngorok, who also succumbed also to being stabbed by unknown under unclear circumstances, was laid to rest in Wednesday with relatives, also the family members and other mourners, also already overwhelming by grief in there. And that is something also we did see. But why do you kill somebody just like that? Even if me and you are disagreeing, but does it call for me to be murdering you? And that's how something also which we must also give keen interest to. At the end of the day, we must make sure that we also really talk about it, because you are murdering somebody just simply because you had a disagreement with this person. But is it enough for you to murder this person? That is where also really we need to understand and also put the differences aside. And now the father of two was described as a hard worker and a devoted Christian, also who shared with the needy and was a good timekeeper also really. And that's something where we see him being praised, and as well he was also praised as a good gospel artist in there. And he was buried in his ancestral home, that's in Kedopur village in Nakapiripiri town council, Nakapiripiri district, and the Catholic priest who also said to have been in the late Ngorok's company at the time of his death is being investigated by the police in connection with his death in there. And remember, when he was being murdered, he was actually in a company of a priest in there. But how do we make sure that such issues also really be addressed very well in there? And that's something also which at the end of the day I feel we must also really give keen interest. Now at the bottom, Mr. Joseph Esau, who represented also the URA Commissioner for Domestic Taxes, praised Ngorok as a diligent time manager, and who also really beyond professional duties also really devoted his time for prayers in there. And that is how at the end of the day we must also really give keen interest to. We must give back to God. We must make sure we are closer to God as always in there, because if at all you meet your death, well, you're in company of good things. Trust me, heaven is what awaits you. But sometimes really if you die in a club, maybe you die over in a bar brawl, these are things also really at the end of the day where your final destiny will be questioned. And in most cases people also start doubting that you died in a club. What else, maybe what else are you going to be convincing God with? These are questions only we need to ask also really and understand in there, because many of times people also really die under unclear circumstances. Where we did see Miss Evelyn Kasime, one of the workmates, said Ngorok had a warm also really personality and cheered up those around him. And the chairman also really of staff council of URA, Mr. David Kasoma, called for calm, saying investigating bodies would also really thoroughly investigate the matter in there. But really, why would you reach the extremes of wanting to kill somebody and just eliminate the person's life just like that? These are things really I feel at the end of the day we must also really give keen interest to, and we must desist from, because if you want development, then definitely that is how we are going to be attaining that. But really, nonetheless, we must also really avoid issues pertaining what we call murders. Really, if you disagree with somebody, because this man is not URA, he's just working for that institution. He's not URA, He's not the one taxing you. He's not government. But why would you want to maybe murder him if at all it was tax related in there? Maybe if the person confiscated your property, why would you still come back to haunt this person? Because this person is doing the job, and that is how at the end of the day I feel we need to also really make sure that we talk about that, and that is where we are going to be leaving that discussion aside with. And now yesterday's social media, by the way, was awash with a lot of congratulatory messages, with others solely condemning that is the party principal Robert Chagulanyi for NUP in there. But we did see that happening where opposition national platform party president Robert Chagulanyi also graduated yesterday, also with what we call bachelor's degree in law after 7 years of waiting in there. That's from Cavendish University, where over 700 graduated in there. But how do you make sure that instead of congratulating this young man, we are condemning him? Because we did see many posts condemning the party principal, but how do you make sure all these matters are not also really being maybe criticized in there? Because for one to be congratulated for graduating, it's quite a good thing, because we must make sure that the young generation is first of all inspired into education, and that's why really yesterday I took it also to congratulate the young man in there. But how do you make sure that all these matters come out clearly also to inspire the young generation? Because we have young people who are school age going, but many of them hardly see the benefit of education, and many of them do not also want to go into education. Today you move around, you find children who are supposed to be in classrooms loitering, and when you interact with them, many of them tell you they did not see the value of education, and they did not actually see why they're in school. And I believe such also the members in the society also would come out also to inspire them in there. And that is how yesterday social media was actually awash with also the mixed reactions, with others criticizing, while others also really congratulating that is the party principal Robert Chagulanyi, common known as Bobby Wine, in there for the attaining that also milestone in getting his degree after 7 years of waiting. Remember, law degree is actually what takes 4 years, but he was able to also really take 7 years, I believe. Also where politics also at one time consumed a lot of his time, but now finally he is a law graduate. And that's where also I believe it will not be ending, and we want to see him also enrolling for the bar course, what we call the LDC in there. And that is one thing also at the end of the day, where he will be now officially conferred into what we call a lawyer in there. And that is what will qualify him, that's all into going into the courts of law, maybe to solely stand for one in there. And that is how at the end of the day we are going to be solely congratulating him. And once again, congratulations upon that milestone of also becoming a full lawyer in there. And we are saying that shouldn't also stop in there. We want to see him also continuing with more in there, and that would make this future generation also being inspired in there, in my own opinion. And I believe that is quite possible also for us to attain as a region there, because in Arua City today you see children whom I believe should be in classrooms just loitering, others riding border, others also doing other activities. But instead of being in classrooms, who is now to inspire them? It is actually us. When I talk about us, it is me and you. And when I talk about me and you, it means you is listening. We must start telling these young children to also embrace education. At the end of the day, education will be quite good. And commencing also speaker at the occasion, Justice Monica Kaliegra Mugenyi challenged the class of 2024, including Bobby Wine, on the essence of what we call transformational leadership. And remember, many also people came out that many people were actually doubting the authenticity of this degree. And now he had to also carry out also what we call thorough investigations and thorough defense for his law degree in there, as recently came out also reports that he will be graduating up with something many doubt. And now officially he is a graduate. I believe the National Council of Higher Education has actually taken the initiative of investigating that, and now he is a full lawyer who also really shouldn't be doubted in there. And that is where we're going to be leaving that discussion aside as we get to move on with also the other stories that we couldn't see on the story this morning. And now leaving that aside, the budget graft case, court declines also to have the UHRC boss audio played again, is another story that we are seeing on the papers this morning, where court has also for the second time declined to have an audio of meeting involved in Uganda Human Rights Commission chairperson, that's Mariam Wangadia, and 3 legislators played in court for her recognition also in there. Now on Thursday, Wangadia appeared at the Anti-Corruption Court Division also that is of the High Court for further hearing of her testimony in chief, which had also been previously stopped pending a ruling in the presentation of the audio of the conversation also between her and the 3 lawmakers accused of seeking, that is 20% kickback out of the budget also graft case in there. And now that's also something we did see, and while we did see Wangadia was testifying against the Justice Paula Kamba of Busiki County. In Mutumba, we do have Yusuf Matembuli of Bunyole East, Mputaleza District, and Sis Namuju Dionisi, also the district woman representative of Luengo in there. And that is one thing also we did see, where court also declined to play the audio yet again for the second time. But how exactly will this matter be dropped? And maybe how will this matter also be addressed in there finally, because these legislators are battling cases of corruption. And today when it comes to issues of corruption, many people are actually also raising eyebrows, with no others now losing trust in the fight against corruption. But how do you make sure that also these kickbacks in the budget? Remember, the president also recently came out and said he now has enough information and enough evidence in relation to what continues to also be happening around the budget, also in the where some people also have the tendency of allocating the budgets also to suit their interest in there. But that is one thing also which we are saying shouldn't happen, and we must also champion what we call issues pertaining transparency, because when we talk about transparency, that's actually where we need to also make sure that our budgets are very, very much transparent, where money which is meant for also certain projects must go into projects other than also going into other projects in there, because others might have just maybe rechanneled the money to other sectors but not necessarily pocketing them. But that's where we're saying that is still a form of corruption. What the money is planned for must go into that money at the end of the day. That is how we are going to be attaining a development that we want as a nation and as a region as well in there. But we are going to be taking a short commercial break that will also be ushering us into many, many other topics. But for now, we are going to be taking another short commercial break. Remember, so many issues also really continue to unfold, which we are going to be also letting you know on the show as well. And my name is Farish Majid. Stay tuned as we get you back shortly.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region. 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 West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
All right, welcome back from that short commercial break. We are back with the discussions, and we are going to be doing this with you up to 8 o'clock. And after 8 o'clock, we shall be having a guest that is none other than Honorable Cassiano Wadri, former MP of Arua Municipality, together with Job Richard Matua, Assistant Resident City Commissioner, Arua City, as they will be discussing on what our next priority as a region should be, because now we have been quite a long period of time demanding for power, which is actually said to be one of those factors that has left us behind as region. Now we finally have also what we call the national grid power connection. What next as a region? That discussion also will be coming shortly from now, and the team is already here and they will be joining us. That's at 8 o'clock, and we shall be doing that with them up to 9 o'clock, and where I hope you as the viewer also will be part of the discussion, also where the panel also will be explaining on what they feel needs to be the next priority for the region in the, now that we have power. What next? Because the power may not be enough, where we also already say to be still behind, and how are we going to be changing the mindset of the people to also make sure that they utilize the available power source in there, which something which I feel many already enjoying. And today we barely see what we call the power blackouts, and many people actually excited about this. Now they feel they are being connected to the national grid, but is it enough? What are some of those also already hidden also messages that they need to understand with the power, and how exactly this power also will be changing their livelihoods? And today when we talk about socio-economic transformation, how can this be possible with the available power in there? All that discussion will be coming through later on. But now let's move on. Minister warns doctors against absenteeism in hospitals. This is really a great challenge, where many of the times you move to hospitals, more so the government hospitals, you find no doctor to also attend to the patients in there. Now during emergencies it becomes quite worse, where we have lost lives, where mothers have lost also lives in there, and their babies as well in there, because many of the times they move these hospitals, the doctors are not there. And how exactly should this be addressed? Yesterday I was in KOKOLIRIKO General Hospital, where the Lumago Foundation was able to donate about 40 CCTV cameras to what we call the medical facility also in there, which is something which I feel is quite good, because due to the insecurity also at the health facility, we lost babies also in there. We have cases where people have lost property, and now I believe with the installation of the CCTV, that is going to be history, and also where we now expect security to be beefed up. And remember, the health facility is actually addressing a number of patients who come as far as South Sudan, with others already coming from DRC, because from KOKOLIRIKO, DRC is not very far, and South Sudan also already as well is not far. And that means this health facility is attracting a number of patients who have also been subjected to what we call insecurity. And that is something we did see yesterday, where now the Lumago Foundation was able to also really donate what we call CCTV cameras to the health facility, and that is something also which I feel with over the 40 CCTV cameras, that is going to be addressing the issues of insecurity, because insecurity has actually been a challenge in there. And earlier this year, we lost a baby at the health facility where the mother had gone to labor to also actually give birth, but up to date, the baby has not been found. And then that means the security in there must be beefed up, and that is how at the end of the day, where now we must also improve on security. And remember, the health facility, actually one observation is that has a lot of porous border points. The fence also has a lot of holes where I believe the criminals can easily enter into the health facility. Now that's something also where we did see the RDC, that is Amy Mitala for Koboko, also calling upon the health facility to also through the office of the cow to prioritize what we call fencing the health facility, because I was able to see a number of porous border points already for the health facility in there as I was able to also move around the hospital to see what is happening. And that means where we are also being told that in the last also the budget, also the fencing of the health facility would actually cost about 6 million. And that means the cow's office has now been tasked to actually make sure that they raise this money to make sure that this health facility is fenced once and for all. Remember, that is actually one thing also which we feel must also be dealt with. And remember, the CCTV is actually going to also be addressing another issue of what we call drug theft. And remember, also they have had cases also where at one point a health worker was also caught, that is also throwing a mattress over the fence in there. That is quite embarrassing and quite shocking also in there. That's so another case that was also registered in there. And many people have actually lost property and drugs also at the health facility in there. And now these are going to be addressed with the installation of the CCTV camera under the Lumaga Foundation in there. And that's something also which I must also take the initiative of appreciating them for doing that, because we need to make sure that whoever does good is appreciated. And that's where we need to also make sure that whoever is able to also really support government in some of these activities must also do so, because we're not going to be waiting for everything from government, but rather also if at all we are also really advantaged, why don't we also really extend the same also really to those who are also within the society in there. Now that's where we did see State Minister for Health Anifa Kawoya also the Bagana warning doctors against absenteeism from their duties of also stations, saying it endangers the population in there. And that is something also which I want to agree, where also I want to give an example. Let's imagine now you have an emergency case, you are rushed to the health facility and the doctor is busy in the bar somewhere. Who is going to treat you, and how exactly are you going to be getting the treatment that you need also in there, because health is actually wealth. And that is where we are saying doctors must be at the places of deployment at all times. And that is how at the end of the day we are going to be also making sure that we also live away from tendencies also of dying as a result of negligence, because for you to abscond from duty, that is also really part of negligence, which I feel must be addressed with and also must be given keen interest to, because if at all we're not giving that attention to what we call maybe total submission to work, then that definitely that is also going to be termed as negligence in there. And that is where I'm going to be leaving a discussion aside with as we get move on with the show. Remember, so many issues continue to happen both nationally and internationally, and I will be also letting you know that later on. But let's continue to move also with what is happening. And remember, absconding from duty is actually part of corruption, because you are getting money and government is paying you for full time also at the health facility in there, and you are absconding maybe after 2 hours of working, maybe after 1 week of also in the month of working in there, and then you're getting a full month's salary. That is still corruption, which also must be dealt with in there. That's why we did see also IG telling stop celebrating the corrupt, and IG told that Ugandans, and that's also something which I feel must also really be dealt with, because corruption has always left us behind as a region and as a nation. And now the Deputy Inspector General of Government has cautioned the public against celebrating government officials involved in corruption, noting that such actions undermine efforts to fight corruption in there. And earlier this week, the Anti-Corruption Division of the High Court granted bail to 3 members of Parliament facing charges related to what we call the budget, also the corruption in there. And after their release, that is from Luzira prison, many we are seen also really dancing and also really chanting their names of some of the MPs who also really received the bail in there. But how do you make sure that such officials who are also really involved in corruption are also really not also celebrating there, because corruption is one thing that I believe has also left us behind as a country, and that is where money that was initially catered for development can be swindled and pocketed by one individual who builds a mansion at the stake of the whole also maybe region in there. And that is something also which I feel at the end of the day we must always come out to also condemn the vice in there. And once we condemn it, we are going to be also realizing the benefit of condemning corruption there. But really, on a side note, recently we also did see some posts coming out to say, if at all these people got the money and shared it with you, that is quite good. But how true is that? Is it true? Is it maybe, is the issue of handouts now what we need to take? Is it good? Can it also make sure that we move out of the poverty bar line that we are in? I definitely say no. Money that also is obtained from corrupt means must not also be taken. And that's where I want to also ask the leaders to condemn this vice, and then let them also not pick money from officials whom they know are corrupt. And that is also the way, at the end of the day, money that is genuine shouldn't be mixed with money also from corruption in there. And that is maybe in one point that would also really make sure some individuals who are corrupt also desist from the tendencies of corruption in there. And that's where we're going to be leaving that discussion aside and still looking at so many stories that continue to unfold in the papers. We still have many more stories that also really we are still on the papers. And remember, it being a Friday, we are actually getting closer to the weekend, where we are going to be having a lot of exciting activities also happening over the weekend in there. And remember also, as we get to the weekend, we still see so many stories that also continue to happen in there, and I will be also really looking at some also through later on. But as we get move on, remember, so many issues continue to happen, and not even among that is where we did see Minister Rafael Magezi, the Minister for Local Government, also really urging youth to credit Museveni also really for these government initiatives. And remember, that is also really something which I feel where we must also really maybe give credit where it is due, but that's something which also really maybe brings debate in some of the people's minds in there. But today, the president has done a lot when it comes to issues of security, where we give credit. When it comes to issues of also peace and stability in the country, we are saying definitely that is something also really we must also really praise him for, because many of the people are now today living peacefully. And remember, over the years, we had these challenges where people could hardly sleep in their houses. And while growing up, by the way, one of the stories that my grandmother used to often tell me is about issues of wars and how they used to run into exile, where they used to hide, and how they used to do those things. Really, you realize that that was a lot of also really misery and a lot of pain also during that time in there. But today we have the peace, and how do we make sure that we champion and also really respect that peace in there is what matters also for us as a nation in there. And that means we must not only look at the peace, just like maybe somebody, maybe I got listening to radio, because we must make sure that we utilize the peace for development. And how are we going to be using this peace for development? That is quite simple, avoiding issues of asking for money from politicians, what we call the handouts of Azuereo tendency. We must engage in what we call active production. And then secondly, we must also really champion development and hard work, because if at all we're not working hard, then definitely we are not going to be also really realizing a lot of also really programs also that government is trying to implement. For instance, the PDM and the Myoga and the rest, which government is also trying to give to the citizens in there. We are going to be leaving them to pass, and that would also not be quite well for us to also already attain what we call the substantive development that we want as a nation and we want to achieve in there. And that means me and you must make sure that we join hands. And today government has actually rolled out PDM, and yesterday, on a good note, the officials did come to my area, that is in Ivory Division, also to make sure that they also talk to the people. And that is where we did see this happening in orphanage cell, where many people also will be attracted. And that is something also we did see happening in there, where many people actually came together to also really make sure they get knowledge of PDM. But one of the observations I was able to make at the PDM meeting in that is that many people think that government is giving this money for campaigns. And that is where we did see women also really saying, if I don't get this money, I'm not going to be voting for this party ahead of this general election. But is this money necessarily for politics? That is one thing also really I will be asking your views and thoughts on, because that is what many of the locals at the grassroots are thinking about the Paris Development Model funds, which government is actually trying to give them also to make sure that they move out of poverty in there. That means we need to do what we call thorough sensitization before we give this money in there. And that's where we need also to make sure that people get knowledge of what we call financial literacy, before them receiving these funds. We are taking a short commercial break, and afterwards we are going to be joined by our guest. That's Honorable Kashana Wadri, former MP for Central Division, former Rome Municipality, sorry, who is actually eyeing the Central Division seat, and we also going to be joined by another guest, that is Job Richard Matua, Assistant Resident City Commissioner, on what our next priority as a region should be now that we have the power connected also in there. We take a short commercial break. My name is Farish Majid, and we come up with the discussions in our second hour. Stay tuned.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region. West Nile TV, lighting up the region. West Nile TV, lighting up the region.